Hey everyone, I'm Malia and this is the ADHD Venture. Welcome to the very first video on my new YouTube channel that I am very nervous to make, so please be nice. For those who don't know me, I have ADHD and I run an account on Threads where I talk about mental health and neurodivergent experiences with around 6,000 followers within Instagram as well. Something I've been wanting to try for a while is reviewing self-help books through a mental health and neurodivergent lens. I know from personal experience that when you're low on spoons or when you're depressed or otherwise dealing with your mental health, it can be really hard to seek, find, and accurately interpret information and coping skills that can help you. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and it's always been a passion of mine. So I'm gonna make it my mission to learn everything I can about neurodivergence and mental health and share it with all of you lovely people because I need it too. The first book I read and would like to review is How to Keep House While Drowning by Casey Davis. Anybody who has struggled with mental illness or has been low on spoons as a neurodivergent or dealt with another disability or chronic illness knows the difficulty that comes with house cleaning and basic home maintenance. And probably even more so knows all about the guilt and the shame from not being able to stay on top of it the way other people can. How to Keep House While Drowning is a guilt-free guide for those of us who have been through that experience and are looking for ways to function. The author, Casey Davis, is a licensed therapist, a mom, and ADHDer, so she is one of our people. And if you do choose to read it yourself after watching this video, it's written in a beautifully ADHD-friendly format with really short chapters and all of the important points are bolded. She also writes the book with a really kind, trauma-aware lens for those of us who have unhealthy relationships with cleaning. I think it's definitely worth a read, but if you don't have the spoons right now, this is the video for you. Now, if you are neurodivergent, disabled, chronically ill, mentally ill, you have probably read and heard about all of the techniques for keeping your house clean many, many times before. She does mention a lot of well-known techniques like using a visual timer and body doubling. So what I did was I picked out some of the ideas from How to Keep House While Drowning that I thought were unique to this book, ideas that I found interesting and effective that maybe you could try too for yourself. It was honestly really hard to narrow it down. She packs so many good ideas into such a tiny little book. But here's the list I came up with. I'm gonna lead with my favorite tip, which is give yourself permission to just do one dish. I've posted about this one on Threads before and gotten a lot of hate for it, but it is actually a game changer and here's why. We put so much pressure on ourselves and there's such an expectation to complete tasks, to finish projects. But that means on days when I'm low spoons, on days that I am overwhelmed, if the idea of doing all of the dishes sounds overwhelming, then none of the dishes are getting done. Casey Davis says that you can give yourself permission to do just 5% of the task. Giving myself permission to just do one dish takes the pressure off and makes me feel less overwhelmed. And very frequently, that one dish turns into more dishes. But the point is that it doesn't have to. And if I do the one dish and realize that my body is not letting me do that today, it's okay. I got one dish done and I don't have to feel horrible about myself. Tip number 2 is using music to get yourself off the couch. Whether it's ADHD paralysis or depression or any number of other issues, I know many of us have been couch zombies before. How to Keep House While Drowning says that you should use music or a TV show or whatever you can to kind of snap yourself out of it and get yourself off the couch, which is very similar to some of the stuff that my own therapist has said to me about kind of breaking that cycle in your brain. Tip number 3, if you're really drowning and your donations box has been sitting in your house or apartment for over 6 months, you can just throw it away. This one really hit for me as somebody who had a donations box sitting here for well over 6 months. Although I would like to add to this one and say that there is also the option of just writing free on the box. And depending on if you live in an apartment complex or in a house or what have you, just putting it out somewhere accessible. For me, this one was a lot easier than trying to figure out where all of these big items should be disposed of, and it made me feel a little bit better about the environment. And it's nice to give things a second home. Buy Nothing groups and Facebook Marketplace also exist, but personally I find them very overwhelming and I'm sure a lot of other people do too. Tip number 4, the basket technique. This is one I had already kind of established for myself and I love. Basically, if there are areas in your living space where piles of stuff keep collecting, just put a basket there. When we first moved into this apartment, there were a few spots in the apartment where all of our laundry kept collecting in a pile, and also all of our sweaters, and it kept ending up on the couch. So now we have 3 laundry baskets in different locations and a sweater basket next to the couch, and laundry doesn't end up everywhere anymore. I also found that I kept dropping my bags on the floor every time I came in the front door. So now we have a basket for bags right by the front door. As much as I love this technique, I'm gonna have to figure out what to do when I run out of floor space. Number 5 is not so much a tip as an idea, but I like it, so I'm gonna share it. Pretty does not necessarily mean functional. You could have a very aesthetically pleasing living space and have it fall apart or feel uncomfortable because you don't have systems that work. When I first started my current job, I realized that every day I was taking off my Apple Watch and throwing it on the windowsill after work. My windowsill is full of pretty flowers and it looks ugly. It makes it look ugly. But putting it there is a system that works for me. So now that's where the Apple Watch charger lives, and that's its home, and it's organized. Much to my dismay, because I do like pretty things. Tip number 6 is to make a list of activities you enjoy that have wait times, and use those wait times to start a care task. This works because it gives the care task a finite end, and therefore makes it less overwhelming. The example she uses is ordering DoorDash. So you order the food, you start a care task, by the time the food arrives, you're done. Tip number 7 is another one for your really slow days. Casey Davis says to just move to the location of the task. There is no pressure here to actually do the task. Just move to the location. If you are trying to do the dishes, just move to the kitchen. I think the idea here is just to kind of create a little bit of momentum for yourself, kind of like with the music. And again, if it doesn't work and you don't get the dishes done, that is okay. Speaking of the dishes, tip number 8, you can unload the dishwasher one category at a time. This is another one that I personally have found really helpful. When emptying the whole dishwasher seems like too much, I can just put away the cups. And now great, I have clean cups. And like with the other tips, it often leads to me putting away the other dishes as well. This one doesn't just have to apply to the dishes. That's the example I'm using because dishes are the thing I struggle with the most personally. But if you're cleaning up clutter in the living room, you can go category by category as well. Honestly, so many of these tips I wish I'd been taught as a child. Tip number 9 is for if you're having a really bad day. You do not have to bring any amount of speed to your care tasks. You can move as slowly as you need to move. One suggestion she has in that vein is to try doing only a commercial's worth of productive time while you're watching a show. That way you have some way to break it up and pace yourself. And finally, tip number 10. If there's something you want to do but aren't doing it, it's probably overwhelming you. She says to try setting a smaller goal for yourself and keep setting smaller goals until you find the one that doesn't overwhelm you. The example she uses for this is if the idea of 30 minutes of exercise on an exercise bike sounds like too much, try just 5 minutes or 3 minutes. The way I applied this one was last summer I tore my meniscus and had to go to physical therapy. And they handed me this giant list of exercises that I had to do every day in order to feel better. But my physical therapy team were all amazing people, and I went to them and I said, hey, I have ADHD. What are the most important exercises on this list? Because this is really overwhelming, and I know I'm not gonna be able to do this every day, but I wanna get better. And without any judgment at all, they went through and they circled the 3 that I should do on my low spoons days. It has now been 6 months and I barely feel it. So, big fan of this technique. I want to end with a few memorable quotes and my main takeaways from the book as a whole. This one she lists as her personal philosophy, and it is shockingly similar to Marie Kondo. You don't exist to serve your space exists to serve you. If a system doesn't become easy or automatic for you, then it's not the right system. You don't struggle with motivation, you struggle with task initiation. And finally, my personal favorite, laundry is morally neutral. While this book is full of amazing ideas, reading it was also very healing and felt a little bit like going to therapy. She really validates you and talks you through your own cleaning trauma. She really tackles the shame of being a messy person. And she refers to chores or care tasks as kindnesses to future you. Now, personally, I don't want to do the dishes, but I think future Malia would would really love drinking coffee out of one of her favorite mugs in the morning. She unexpectedly had some really good thoughts on environmentalism and some of the guilt and shame some of us feel surrounding that. She plays a lot with terminology, like instead of chores, it's care tasks. Instead of cleaning, it is resetting your space. The book makes the excellent point that not everything has to be clean at the same time. A goal more important than pretty and aesthetic is functionality. I'd say the most important theme of this book is be kind to yourself. If you liked this video, please like, subscribe, share with anyone who might find this helpful, and I'd love to hear what you think and what book you think I should do next in the comments section. Bye everyone!